This is the Horse Radio Network.
This episode 248 of the Dressage Radio Show on the Horse Radio Network. This episode is sponsored by Kentucky Performance Products at kppusa.com. This is Lindsay McCall from Jupiter, Florida.
And this is Regina Cristo from Sand Lake, New York, and you're listening to the Dressage Radio Show, brought to you this week by the United States Para-Equestrian Association. And we also have our producer, Glenn, with us tonight.
Hey, guys. Good to talk to you again.
Nice to hear from you again, Glenn. It's nice to have you back.
I know. It's good to be back. And Lindsay, am I allowed to congratulate you in public?
Of course, of course.
Congratulations. Lindsay's having a baby.
Yes, thank you.
Now, your timing was a little off.
It really was. Babies don't plan things correctly.
No, you have to have a talk with that baby because you're having the baby right in the middle of WEG.
I know.
You could have gone to France.
You
could have gone to France. You could have hung out in Paris for a while, all of that. That's usually where people conceive babies, not have babies. So,
right?
Yes.
And they do deliver babies in France, too, you know, Lindy.
I'm sure that's why I said there's a lot of good veterinarians, FEI veterinarians, but I could have just been delivering just fine, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's true. You don't even have to go to the hospital. They're all right there, the showgrounds. You'll be fine.
I'm sure I'll be very on top of my iPhone, though, no matter what day it is, trying to make sure our Para-Dressage team's doing well and everyone else there.
I'll take your place. If you guys need a fill-in for Lindsay, I'll go. I can do it. I don't write as good as her, but I can talk. So that's
You'll be perfect for it.
All right. Well, congratulations. We're very excited for you.
Thank you. So, Regina, what's new with you?
Oh, just surviving the winter up here in the Northeast. It's been a wild winter for sure. Still looking for a horse, so I'm still on that quest, and I'm actually very excited to be coming down to Florida in a couple weeks to help with the horse show down there in Wellington.
Yeah, well, we're excited too. I can't believe how bad the weather's been up there. My gosh, it's been awful. My poor horses. My mom sent me a photo of our horses. They said this is the first time we've seen grass in months.
Oh, it's been bad. We actually had a beautiful weekend this weekend. The temperatures were almost hit 50, and everyone was just in heaven. And today it was only 25, and it's going to stay that way or worse all week. So it'll be nice to have spring come up here in the Northeast.
Yes.
How are you feeling?
March will be spring.
Definitely. And how are you doing down there?
I've been at a few horse shows down here in Wellington, back and forth to both the show jumping and the dressage complex, and everything's really looking great. We have some new riders and we have some new horses, and I was watching them and taking some photos. So I'm excited for this year to see our Para-Dressage team kind of come together before the WEG.
Yeah, that's going to be exciting. And you're feeling well?
Yeah. And then personally, I mean, goodness, having a baby is like buying a completely different horse. It's like going and buying like a Shetland pony, and you have none of the tack you need. You have none of the blankets. You have nothing, and you have to figure out everything you need. And then you also need a place to put them and all that other stuff. So it's been a fun process, but I'm learning a lot as we go.
It's going to be great. I think a lot of people are excited, especially about the show in Florida and then the next one in California, and everyone coming together and all working hard to get up to New Jersey and try to qualify for WEG. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting, and I know when will that be? It'll be in June for our selection trial. So it'll be awesome. It'll be really
I'm
great.
always amazed at how close the selection trial is to the competition. I realize that makes sense because you have to have sound horses and all of that stuff.
Right.
But boy, it does put the pressure on right to the end, doesn't it?
It really does. And there's also some people that are going to be flying over to Europe, some of our riders. So you only have that limited amount of time to fly over, come back, do the trials, and get ready for WEG. And then right between WEG and the trials, they usually have their training camp and everything else. So I think it's a lot. It's a lot on the horses. It's intense. It's an intense time period.
It's a good thing our para-riders are so tough.
yeah. They don't have to just haul their horses. They have to haul themselves and sometimes their wheelchairs and everything else. Their coaches and their helpers around the country.
That's what hopefully makes us successful.
So coming up on today's show, we have Rosalind Kinsler, and we also have Susan Guinan from Vince Ramos Therapeutic Riding Center. And our first guest, Roz, who that's how we like to refer to her, she is a trainer. She is part of the Young Rider Graduate Program. She was a Para-Dressage coach for the Paralympics, and she's also a rider. And I know she has her bronze and silver medals and many regional championships. And I know she's been very involved with North American Young Riders since '97. So she's really seen the Young Rider program grow. And her whole influence with Para-Dressage is she's trying to really get everyone involved with Para-Dressage, with able-bodied, and at the Young Rider team. And up next, we have Rosalind Kinsler. Hey, Roz, thanks for coming on the show today with Regina and I.
It's entirely my pleasure.
I know you just probably got back from the barn with training down here in Wellington. I know you guys have been busy over there at White Fences with Ellie and Dell and everyone, huh?
Absolutely. It's such a benefit to be down here, and particularly with the weather that we're having up north. So, we are quite spoiled and enjoying it.
Well, before we talk any about, the Para-Dressage world, I kind of want to know, we need to tell our listeners more about you. I know you have your USDF bronze and silver medals, so tell me kind of how you got involved in the equestrian sport.
Oh, because I always wanted to ride, and my parents would never give me a horse. So, from the very beginning, I grew up outside of Manhattan. I always had to fight pretty hard to get my weekly lesson, and got involved in Pony Club without a horse, which was no small feat, and stayed involved, and then eventually went to riding camp, and I just couldn't leave it alone. So I got to the point where, I would pretty much ride anybody's horse anytime, and I still kind of do that, actually. I still love to do it. But over time, it developed into a job that I never intended it to. It was just funny how it went. I loved doing it. I taught part-time while I was in college, and again, all without a horse. I didn't get my first horse until after I got married.
Wow.
Finished college, yeah. And I often blame my dad, maybe I'd be done with this if he would have gotten me a horse, but at that time. But, it's a passion. And I can honestly say, even if I'm tired in the evening, the next morning I can't wait to get on. It's the best.
How did you transition from the coaching into the riding and then into the training and coaching?
Well, I have to say honestly, I love to ride, but I like to teach as well. And to me, it's like a tremendous puzzle. I know I can get on a horse and do what I need to do, but how am I going to explain it to people? And so how am I going to do that without touching the horse and touching the rider? So I got started teaching part-time while I was in college to make some money. And the more I did it, the more I liked it. And so it built up that way. And then, our sport is a little bit like a college, as people would, over time, I got a horse to ride from, just a plain old horse, nothing special. But I was able to get it going. And at that point, I was still jumping a lot and do pretty well with it. And it was, of all things, black and white on the East Coast, which was kind of forbidden at the time. But he did well. This has taken me places I never thought I'd ever get to. I've been to Europe with customers on buying trips, went to Oklahoma City, which for a New Yorker is huge, for when we had our regional championships around the country. Yeah, it's the coolest thing. And, if I get bored of it, shame on me, because there's always another facet that can be developed. Para, obviously, is one of them that I didn't even know what it was. But,
right. And speaking of Para, yes, tell us a little bit. We know you have a very strong affiliation with our able-bodied Young Rider program in the U.S. And how do you see Para youth programs trying to merge or work together with our able-bodied young riders?
I think we need to find a way to merge it. I think because, of course, juniors are the future of our sport, I can see over time, I know that there was way before I knew anything about it, we had paras there, and they formed teams with able-bodied riders, and that may be the way to do it, just because of the size of it. Now, young riders, NAJYRC has gotten so big, there's not even time in the schedule for dressage seat equitation. But I think if we can find a way to integrate a few of our para-juniors into it, any way we can find, it's well worth the effort. I do run also, because I'm the USDF Youth Programs Chair, and the USEF Young Rider Graduate Program is for basically graduating juniors, and we have included paras in that program, para-dressage riders. We've had 2 para-dressage riders participate, so that gets them meeting able-bodied junior and young riders, and that's also very important.
I see that as a really important fact that you brought up, to start including them on the teams with the other able-bodied North American young riders. That's a really good point that you bring up. I hadn't thought of that before.
Yeah, it was interesting the way we did it. They made teams, and and probably Hope can remember this, but where one para went with one dressage rider, went with one jumper rider, and they somehow made a calibrated score. And I think that maybe there's a way to try and reinstitute that. But with it as it is now, the schedule is so jam-packed, I don't see how we can get a full para team in there in addition from each region. I don't think there's time. There's desire, there's just not time. So maybe this is the way to go at it.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And how have you seen it change since you've been involved with it since '97? I mean, you've seen the growth of it.
It's huge. When I first started, we only had young riders. We took one team of 4 riders from each region. Now we have a team of 4 juniors and a team of 4 young riders. And so, we've doubled it. And it's gotten to be such big business, which is a good news, bad news deal. But it grows by leaps and bounds. Another thing we do as part of this, and I'm not sure how we, except that I know we could do this, we have across the country through USDF, there are FEI Junior Young Rider clinics. And it seems like there may be over time a way to incorporate a para rider into that. It's selected. You have to be, they give preference to riders with more advanced experience as part of the USEF pipeline program. But perhaps there's a way we can offer a structure to include a spot for a para, particularly in the regions that don't have as many kids vying for a spot. But certainly, para juniors can come and audit because there's a large part of that, and it's applicable to them. So it's really good to make that effort, again, to meet other juniors and young riders to be involved.
Yeah, that all seems like a great way to get all our juniors together, whether they're able-bodied, para, and because pretty much everyone's working towards the same goal.
Yep.
To improve their riding. So tell us, Roz, about the riders you have currently in training, and if you're doing anything different this year, getting ready for the games, and of course, first the trials to get into the games. So, what's a little bit different about your training during the year of a huge international event?
Well, you have to stay focused on the end result, which it's hard. I mean, I think of it through we bring the horses training along, so hopefully we peak at the competition, not before it and not after it. What's a little different for me this year, both of my para riders have new horses, and they haven't had them very long. So, I've been on a crash course to learn the horses. This year, what I did a little differently than I have in the past is I've competed both of my para horses in a class at a big show, so I can feel them in the ring and learn them that much faster, because there's no substitute for going down the center line. From my point of view, to be sitting on them and feel how I need to set my warm up and so on for my 2 riders. So that is a little different. And with 2 new horses, even though they're different grades, it's a lot of homework going into that. And I try and keep both of them. This farm that we stable at while we're in Florida is busy. I think that's a huge benefit. I try and have them ride when it's busy, when there's lots of other lessons going on, because that is somewhat like a horse show environment. So for their nerves and for the horses' nerves, and again with new horses, I need to know how they're going to react if somebody, for example, inadvertently passes close to them, or if my riders are nervous sharing their arena with many riders. So it's all part of the preparation that goes into competing successfully. And we had a schedule set up of shows we were going to attend prior to the CPEDI coming up, because that would be really, a bad idea to make that the first competition of the season. So we've been going to the venue and competing on a rational basis. In fact, they're going out again this coming weekend. And then we have 2 weeks to fine-tune it up to the CPEDI.
I think it's really important as a trainer what you're doing, and I know my trainers were always very particular about that, about making sure that everything, the atmosphere that you're in, will be the atmosphere that you're in a horse show, instead of just protecting the horses and saying, oh, you'll be fine, and then they get to the Paralympics or the World Equestrian Games and their horses react completely differently. So I think that's really great that you're doing that. It's wonderful.
I think
you're encouraging that.
It's all important, we have a joke around the barn whenever, if something happens when a horse shies and the person, somebody says, well, I'll move. Don't. I can't tell the audience to sit still and please hold down those little children, or please, because life happens. And
yes.
If you're going to be, especially a high-performance competitor, you can't lose your confidence in an environment like that, because I don't care who you are, you're going to be a little nervous when you go down the center line at a really big event. It means something, or you wouldn't be doing it. Mm-hmm. So you need to learn how to manage that, at least so it doesn't scare the pants off you.
And I want to know, I know you have one of your riders has a brand new horse that's only a month pretty much as it's been here in the United States. How did you take that horse, I guess, from getting off the trailer and getting it to your barn to showing? I know you guys did one of the national shows this last weekend. Kind of what was the process there?
Well, it was pretty scary, to be honest. I mean, in normal, if I had my druthers, I wouldn't go to a show in fewer than 2 or 3 months, but we didn't have an option. So what we did do is we rode him short periods of time, because that trip is draining. It's a hard trip for the horse to make, and I'm always astounded that they let us, do that with him. So we rode short segments just to feel our way with him, and I did spend a lot of time riding him myself first before I put the rider on so I could understand him, and then not practicing tests, but learning how the controls work, like, for example, learning how to get a canter depart from him, or how's he going to be on the center line, or this type of thing. And we built up the time in the saddle, and and for this horse in particular, it was imperative to me that I needed to get on him at the horse show. And I wanted to get him to the venue. We were very fortunate that the horse show was the same venue as the CPEDI. So in preparing him that way, I needed to know him actually better for me as a rider than my rider needed to know him. And the rider and I have a very good working rapport, so I know it probably made her nervous, but she was kind enough to step back a little bit and let me run the discovery process. What I didn't want to do with him is ride him and drill him. I wanted to get a chance to know who he was. I think that's very important.
That sounds like a great plan, and just from watching a little bit what's been going on with him and his rider, you look like you did a terrific job.
Well, thank you. Well,
can't wait to see him in Florida. We only have a couple minutes left, but I wanted to touch base quick, Roz. I know a lot of the para-riders are talking about stuff with the USDF in the hopes of being included in some type of year-end awards for para. There's year-end awards, it seems, for every single thing under the sun with the USDF, but not for para. I know you've looked into it a little bit. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it would be great to try and get USDF year-end awards, and in speaking with the awards committee, and they made a good point, there's not many paras. And perhaps, this is, again, I don't know these numbers, so please don't quote me on it, but I think as para riders that compete, whether they're high performance or not, they need to join USDF as a para rider so they know, number one, there's a demand. One of the things we talked about was a budget for it, and I've talked to somebody recently that thinks that she may have somebody to fund it. So
that would be great.
Yeah, I mean, it's not for sure, so I don't want to say anything about, who or when, but I've talked to her a little bit, and we're going to get together and talk about an award structure. Perhaps it would need to be a little bit like the Rider Awards to start.
That would be terrific. And I think it's really important. You made a great point that the para riders need to register, if you will, or sign in with USDF as para riders. And I know some of the riders I've talked to have just signed in with USDF as under dressage, not knowing that they should. Yeah, and that's really important. So hopefully we can get that across to all our riders. So thank you, Rod.
If I can push really quickly, is
sure.
Along those same lines, just regular old local shows. Get down the center line so USDF knows they're there. Doesn't matter if you're going to make a team or not. Who cares? But you participate in that way, and it grows. The best advertising is just for people to see you out there doing it.
Well, Roz, thank you so much for coming on the show today with Regina and I. We really appreciate it.
Oh, it is truly my pleasure. I love what I do, and all the stuff I do is a way to return the favor for what the sport's done for me, and that's the honest truth.
I feel like we could have you on another show. You have so much to talk about and so many great ideas out there.
Well, I'd be delighted to any old time.
Well, thank you so much, Roz.
Thank you.
This Nutrition Minute is brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products, the company that simplifies your search for research-proven nutritional supplements at kppusa.com.
The horse that matters to you matters to Kentucky Performance Products. Feeding your horse starch-laden grains can lead to colic, laminitis, and metabolic disease. Today, nutritionists are recommending the use of high-quality fat to provide healthy calories. Fat is an extraordinary energy source. It's readily utilized by the horse and contains more than 2 times the calories of starchy grains. Replacing grain with a high-quality fat supplement reduces a horse's risk of developing health problems. Equijewel Stabilized Rice Bran is an excellent fat supplement. It contains a balanced calcium to phosphorus ratio and won't cause mineral imbalances when added to the diet. Its all-natural ingredients are high in healthy fat and fiber. And best of all, horses fueled by Equijewel stay calmer and more focused on the job at hand. When you need to add healthy calories to your horse's diet, choose Equijewel. To learn more, visit Kentucky Performance Products at kppusa.com.
This Nutritional Minute has been brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products. You can find all of their terrific products at kppusa.com.
And next we have our guest, Susan Gynam, who is the Director of Development at the Vince Ramos Therapeutic Riding Center in Wellington, Florida.
Hi, Susan. It's Lindsay and Regina, and we thank you for coming on the show today.
Well, I thank you so much for inviting me. I'm always excited to talk about equestrians and horses and all kinds of things.
Well, I know you're the Director of Development at Vince Ramos here in Wellington, Vince Ramos Therapeutic Riding Center, if we were our formal name. And I want to know if you could tell our listeners how you got involved in that.
Oh, well, my friend Jessica Pola got me involved in it. I had moved back to Florida from the UK, and she was on the board of directors of Vince Ramos and was also on their auction committee, and she asked me to join the auction committee with her. And our job basically was to go out and procure items for the auction, and I did that for a few years. And the organization was continuing to grow, and my background is in marketing and finance. So when they were ready to bring someone on board full-time to help Ruth in supporting the organization, they asked me if I would like to join. And that happened in 2008. And, as they say, the rest is history.
And here at the Para-Dressage show, we like to talk about other disciplines. I know you're a carriage driver as well, huh?
I am a carriage driver, and I've been a carriage driver for a very long time. I started to drive in the 1980s, and it was it was an extremely exciting sport. I was very young as a driver at that time. I am now not very young as a driver. But we had a great deal of fun. Gladstone, of course, was the biggest event, and it was much different than it is now. And like all things, it's gone through its changes as far as using modern carriages versus antique carriages. We all used to drive antique carriages for our presentation, and now they do presentation on the move. So we used to have Colonel Thackeray. Do you remember, Hope? Colonel Thackeray used to come with his white glove and check every little bit of your carriage to make sure that it was, spit shine to the nth degree. But it's still a great deal of fun. Yeah,
that sounds fun.
A great deal of fun. Yep.
Super. Now, Susan, can you tell us how you got involved with the para-equestrians and how that all started and what you first thought about it and where you are now with it?
It's a very interesting story. I've always been involved in driving for the disabled. In the UK, the equivalent of what we have here, the Professional Association for Therapeutic Horsemanship, is the U.S. organization, and in the U.K. it's called Riding for Disabled, Incorporating Driving. And I became involved in the driving over there. I was also involved in the fundraising. When I moved back to the United States, obviously was still interested and became involved in it again on the driving side, and then with Vince Ramos on the riding side as well. And quite honestly, the para side came as a bit of kismet, as so many things in life do. I happened to be at the farm on a Sunday afternoon, and Hope Hand drove in the driveway, and she was trying to She was talking to me about para-equestrians and some of their struggles and what was going on here. One of the things that we talked about was the fact that the U.S. Para-Dressage team had never stayed as a team in any one location. And we were getting ready, they were getting ready for the para qualifiers to go to London. And they needed another date in Florida before January 31st in order for all their team to qualify. And I had some connections here at various show facilities, and we were able to make that happen. And in addition to that, we were able to house any members of the team that wanted to stay here at Vince Ramos. And we had just opened a covered arena, so it was a great facility. But I think at that time we had 5 of the U.S. para team staying here, as well as a rider from Mexico and 1 from Japan, and 2 from Finland. Vince Ramos actually lent 2 horses to the team from Finland so that they could qualify. So we became, involved that way.
And Vince Ramos also donated or let one of the riders from one of the other countries borrow one of the horses.
Yes, we lent 2 horses to the team from Finland. I think Hope was giving out my email address to everybody, but that's okay, Hope. I won't hold that against you. And I got an email from the chef de keep from Finland who was looking for horses, that they were coming to compete, but they weren't able to afford to bring their horses. So Ruth Menner, who's our executive director, and I kind of walked through the barn and thought, okay, who might work? And they had sent us a description of the riders, their size, their disabilities, and we had never met them. We were, going through the translation of Finnish to English and trying to figure the whole thing out. Came up with 2 horses, and they actually were fantastic. One of the horses that we lent to the team was Hidden Creek Jones, which was Margie Engel's 2003 AGA Horse of the Year, had more show jumping points than any other horse in the United States. Mm-hmm. And he obviously is not a dressage horse, but please don't tell him that, because since then he has just been an extraordinary part of our program here, but in so many other ways. He's carried our kids as Special Olympians to their games, and then Katja from Finland rode him for her qualifier to go, and actually did qualify on him to go to London for the Para Games. But, he had to learn. Her dispensation was that she rode with double whips, and, Jones had no idea what that was. They arrived on a Wednesday. Their coach rode him on a Wednesday afternoon. They had the jog on Thursday. I think Katya rode him on Thursday afternoon and showed him on Friday for the first time. So he figured it out pretty quickly as to what his job was. So, we are...
That's pretty amazing that these horses are so smart. I know as an owner of a great FEI horse, I have loaned my horse out to 2 foreign countries for big events, and then to a U.S. young rider 2 years ago. And it's amazing how the horses adapt. If they have a good brain, they can do it. And I'm always reiterating this, and I'll just say it until someone tells me to be quiet. But if you have a horse that has a great brain and a great talent, especially in the walk and trot gaits, we need to know about it if you want to help us, because it's a wonderful, wonderful thing. I know you can agree with that, to be an owner of a horse and have them out with the para riders and competing. It's a fantastic opportunity, and I hope more people take advantage. And it sounds like you guys had a great time, and we're very proud of your horses.
We are very proud. But, I think the other thing that, only to reiterate your comment about having horses and their ability to continue to participate in various disciplines, Hope had come to me and said that one of their biggest problems was actually finding horses for the team. And, here in Wellington, we have a wealth of horses. And we get a lot of phone calls here at the center for people who are looking to rehome their horses for whatever reason. Either they've got a little maturity on them, or they just don't fit into another particular program. So when someone calls us and says, they actually did call us and say, we have a 17-2 hand dressage horse that we'd like to donate to you. For us, a 17-2 hand horse means that I need to have 6'7" sidewalkers in order to support a rider on that particular horse. And you can imagine having someone sit on something that size, and I have sidewalkers who tend to be, ladies and gentlemen that are not 6'7". That managing that weight, if anything should shift, could be quite dangerous. So
right.
In talking with the woman, I suggested that, would you consider a para rider? And I called Hope, and Hope called Lynn Seidemann, and Lynn Seidemann came up and saw the horse, and then we had Wes Gunham came down as a trainer and rode the horse on a Thursday afternoon, and it was on a truck headed to New York on a Tuesday afternoon. So we have been able to locate some horses. And Hope and I have had a conversation in the past week about another horse. So I think,
great.
Everybody being willing to take the next step when the call comes in. Maybe it doesn't work for you, but be willing to make that next call to the next person who may have a place or may have a thought. That hanging up and saying, oh, geez, we don't have anything is not an option.
Susan, I wanted to touch base about the Therapeutic Riding Center. You're so involved with that, and I'm sure you're involved with the entire network of Therapeutic Riding Centers. I want to know why there's such a disconnect between the Therapeutic Riding Centers and then bringing riders into the para-dressage world.
I don't, I think it's just a lack of communication. It's something that we continue to work on. I think a lot of times riders, let's put it this way. If you go to any little barn in, I don't know, Virginia, and you're a 12-year-old girl and you're riding a horse and you're doing the 2'6" course, your idol, the person that you want to grow up to be, is the 14-year-old that's doing the 3-foot course. It's not the big names that we see in the international arena on a Saturday night doing the Grand Prix. I think as a sport in general, we aren't really good at sharing information about what's available. If you happen to be in Wellington, you might get some of that information. But if you're in Illinois or Michigan, we're just not really good at it.
What do you think are some ways that we could improve on that, Susan?
I think that with the social communication we have now, I think internet helps. I think Facebook helps, that we are able to get more information out. And I think that the organizations at that level are still really grassroots. That if the national organizations were stronger at promoting it, then the local organizations would be stronger at making it available.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. So are you going to be around in a few weeks when the big para show is down in Wellington? Could we expect to see you around the grounds?
It's hard to not find me there. We have I bring every year, we have a great ramp that has a hydraulic lift that was built for us by as a graduating project from a student from the University of Central Florida. And I bring it each year. Over to, we took it to Jim Brandon, didn't we, Hope? And then we've taken it on to Global as well. So they kind of look forward to having it come. So, yeah, I show up. And this year we have some drivers from that are members of the U.S. Driving for Disabled that are coming to be classified in Wellington also. So, because we'll have an international classifier there.
Well, Susan, we're always so thankful for that ramp. I know I've seen it there, and we try to advertise it here and there that you guys do that. So we're very thankful for that. I know the whole sport is very thankful for that from you guys. But I want to thank you so much for coming on the show today and talking with Regina and I.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
And we look forward to seeing you in just a few weeks here.
Well, I look forward to it. And as always, if there's anything I can do to help, please don't hesitate to let me know.
You can find our show notes and links to today's guest on the website at dressageradio.com. Like us on Facebook, just search for Dressage Radio Show. Follow us on Twitter at Horse Radio. You can learn more about the United States Para-Equestrian Association at uspea.org and on Facebook. And don't forget to check out all the other shows on the Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com.
And let me put a plug in quick for the app. The easiest way to listen to our shows is just to go to the App Store at iOS or Android on your smartphone and search for Horse Radio Network. You can listen to all the shows, including the Dressage Radio Show, right on the app.
Well, Regina, thank you for coming on the show again today as my co-host.
Oh, you're very welcome. I enjoy it. Thank you so much for asking.
And how do people find you online?
I do have a Facebook page. It's just under my name, Regina Cristo, and I can get messages through there, so please feel free to contact me.
And remember, one man's wrong lead is another man's counter canner.